Hello all, we're back. I know I've been promising to do more of these, so let's get a few quick things out of the way, and then we'll dive right back on in. So, before we start, I want to give a shout out to someone who you might not know unless you watched my early attempts at a Chainsaw Man series, which, I'll be honest with you, will likely never be completed. Seriously, those were a lot of work for something nobody watched, and that a lot of better YouTubers did these, well, better than I could. Anyway, Hydro XD is the individual that did those awesome animated backdrops for me there, and it looks like they've been working on their skills and are looking for work. So please contact them if you want an editor or animator. Their details are in the description. Go hit them up if you want a quote. Very, very talented. You're watching an example of their work playing in the background right now. As to the theories, we'll be doing a twofer this time. Today, we'll look at 5 of the more recent and interesting theories posted on our Discord, and next week we'll be looking at one specific theory that, just absolutely rules. I was actually planning on making these a double feature this week, but due to our car troubles and other IRL shenanigans, well, it's not going to be possible. Oh right, keep in mind that when I say interesting, I don't necessarily mean true or even likely. I just mean that the theory was, well, interesting. Something that activates the old almonds. Oh, these videos will contain pretty big spoilers up to the most modern chapters, so you have been warned. With that out of the way, so, our first theory comes to us courtesy of user Joyful Deer, and it goes a little something like this. Theory: Reg may have been shot at by an incinerator. Proof of that may exist in Reg's clothing before and after his ascent, where Fabuta remembers his cape being in a different condition and even remembers an emblem on it. But when found by Rico on the first layer, his pants, the metal collar, and the helmet show signs of having been burnt, with a bigger emphasis on the cape, which has lost the hoodie part and also lost its emblem, which would not be completely missing if it was normal wear and tear, or it had been ripped off or mauled by primeval creatures, which narrows the damage down to burning. Now, you may be wondering, if he got shot at by an incinerator, wouldn't that just kill Reg? And the answer to that is no. And the reason why it's no is because incinerator wielders can choose what to incinerate, as evidenced by Bondrude's and Reg's fight, where Reg literally blows a circle-wide incinerator globe inside of Edo Front, but Nanachi, Bondrude, probably Umbra Hands, and basically anything living survives. When Reg questioned Bondrude about it, he mentions that it was Reg's choice. So, either Reg may have been in an incinerator fight prior to reaching the first layer, and either it may have been with Bondrude, seeing as he wields a Sparagmos, or there's some unseen character out there in the story that wields another incinerator. Whoever it was, it's possible that they were trying to use their incinerator as a means to knock Reg out safely instead of going for a kill. But until we know more about what happened to Reg's cape, we won't completely know the motivations behind it. Okay. I'm not sure if these aren't just made to look more ragged or worn, but assuming you're right, then sure. I mean, I don't think it's Sparagmos, because as far as I understand it, it's a slightly different weapon system. But with the whole twins theme going on, there could well be another incinerator floating around out there. Or maybe Liza did a thing, who knows. It's a decent idea, and yeah, I do suspect that there's going to be some revelation in regards to Reg and his history, at least at some point. And yes, because made in Abyss, it's almost certainly going to be bittersweet. We will have to see. Our next one comes to us courtesy of user Aqua. Because of the recent chapters, where the twins hint at Reg being like them in some way, I'm wondering if that robot girl who they were mistaking for Reg is actually his twin. And the fact that Orzen says each pair of twins ends up with the same names, whether it was from taking letters from their parents' names or any other method, they somehow end up with the same name. So, if Reg is a twin too, that could explain how Rico coincidentally gave him the same name by using her dog's name. And when I think about the topics characters are talking about in the recent chapters, someone waiting for Reg, the reveal that the robot looks like a girl, the sudden reveal about how strange things happen in Orth with twins and the Abyss, as well as that bonus chapter where Reg just happens to find one of the twins' names on one of the papers floating down from a funeral, that feels like it could be foreshadowing or something that would become ironic later if it was revealed that he was a twin. However, this whole theory does clash with the Reg is Rico's dog reborn theory, which is honestly a theory that I have believed for a long time because of all the evidence and how dog-like Reg is. Who knows though, maybe both theories could be true at the same time somehow in some crazy way. I wonder if the whole thing about receiving the same name isn't just limited to twins, and maybe it's just easier to tell with twins because of how rare they are. What if everyone that dies in the Abyss or near it has their soul reborn and always gets the same name again? That's certainly interesting. Keep in mind that names are a huge deal in Japanese. Not just how they're said, but the kanji characters making them up, being selected very carefully to not only confer a specific positive meaning and good luck, but to avoid certain combinations that may invoke bad luck. It's a whole thing. As someone with friends who marry Japanese folks, this is something that can take weeks or months of debate to agree on. And yeah, the twins are definitely the subject of a lot of discussion right now, and I like this idea a lot. But yeah, as you say, I just really like the dog theory, as that one is both incredibly bonkers and astonishingly plausible, depending on how much you want to read into certain symbolism and statements by characters. Regardless, very interesting stuff. Next up, we have user Jazzy Tamia with this one. So, this is a variation on the Abyss is a living thing theory, and yeah, I quite like it. I have a theory that builds on the premise that the Abyss is a living creature, and why the second season foreshadows what lies in the seventh layer. In the second season, Irem Yui turns into a chasm herself with its own rules. Her opening, not touching that one, eventually changes those who want to live in her into hollows that can't leave. Although a cruel world with a horrific value system, it's slightly less brutal than most of the layers of the Abyss. I think that once Rico and the gang enter the seventh layer or below, they'll enter the brain of an entity much like Fueko was inside of Irem Yui. It's a benevolent place, but with scarce resources compared to the surface of the Abyss. Remember, Fueko was able to survive for 150 years and maintain her youth inside Irem Yui's head. Which, no, I still have no idea how that happened. This also plays into the time dilation as you go further into the abyss. You're getting close to the entity's head/brain, and time starts to not affect you as much. I think that the 6th layer is the entryway of the entity. You can't leave without turning into a hollow, which would be the reverse of Idomui's curse upon the citizens that were in her. Although, has a human ever been able to reach the surface after turning into a hollow? I think they've said that the surface dwellers hate hollows and tend to hunt them, but I forget. Pooty, anyone like that want to answer? Anyway, this would solidify my theory that an entity is the abyss and has its own rules and restrictions of where you can go, but you can have some forms of protection, relics and turning into a hollow. I think it makes even more sense that there are dead people who are thousands of years old because, like the citizens of Idumui, they were sacrificed to a more evolved version of themselves, Vaputa. Also, every 2,000 years, I think that is when the entity dies and someone has to take on the duty of being the Abyss. With the new responsibility of being the Abyss, you can destroy or feed on the outer layer and add to the curse by making a new rule of your own. So, as I said, this is another variation on the Abyss is a living thing theory, and I kind of like it. The idea that someone could, rather than being a village, become a layer in and of itself, or the entire abyss, is nuts, in a good way. And this ties into the next theory kind of well. By user Terrans. In chapter 50, we get this panel. Round relics are shaped of wishes. This is the key to understanding the transforming nature of relics. Desire, wishing, and round relics are a powerful combination. Easy desires to fulfill will be more positive for the relic user. Something complex like a desire to give birth or to never be abandoned, left alone by Vueko or her parents, might backfire like a monkey's paw. Also, the Curse of the Abyss is just another effect of the whole time dilation Orzen talks about and our squad does in chapter 62. At the center, not bottom of the abyss, lies something related to Reg, creator, wishgiver, and time doesn't pass there at all, or passes so slow it takes 2,000 years to resync, update with the surface. Liza is literally frozen in time. Only a special relic, made for this purpose, can pass through the layers. Not interference units, they don't cross layers, except for the game, which no is not canon, although if Tiare does show up in some form, I will poop myself. Time manipulation relics, like the bell Liza was searching for, are the strongest needed to survive the center of the pit. 10 meters up from any point, and time itself affects you differently. This is the Curse of the Abyss. Body horror jet lag. Also, your soul gets a beating. But then, what would the mutation be? De-evolution? My theory is, the Abyss itself is a wish-granting egg. Just look at this picture. All the creatures and effed up stuff we see in the Abyss are all just byproducts from a slightly too complex wish made with the strongest relic there is. A relic made from a child's soul. Once every 2,000 years, it gets made at the center of the pit. Liza might be involved in creating the next dawn, so to speak. And yeah, as you can see here, quite a lot of people on the Discord rather enjoyed this one. And yes, I think the implication is that Rico would be the sacrifice. And yeah, that's a really good one. I am honestly not even going to touch it. But yeah, this is yet again one that I can't help but feel might wind up being true in some fashion. Our last one is a shorty by user ApoSeal, or however you pronounce that. Here's the worst theory about Maiden Abyss anyone could think of. What if it's all a dream of a normal Rico in a normal world, but she fell into a random hole and ever since then has been in a coma. Don't you even dare, Tsukushi. It was all a coma dream might be the worst conclusion possible next to, I don't know, the real abyss was the friends we made along the way. Anyway, that's all I guess. A quickie this week and another quickie next week. It's almost as if I were working on something pretty big for the week after. Well, who knows? I guess you'll have to wait and see. Anyways, before we finish for the day, I want to give a huge thanks, as always, to my fantastic patrons. Cheddar, Piece of Yeast, Elspresso, Cheerful Satanist, Starwin Marwin, Question Man 6, Kelcor, Jacob Ramsey, Crazy, Opinion Custard, Wargle, Hunting for R2D2, Inukia Koji, Rose Montgomery, Lance Goebel, Rafferty, Aaron Arnold, The Hedgehog Gamer, Simone, B Empress, Jake, Ranger Danger, Lucian, and Cheshire Quill. If you want to see more like this, why not stick around? Subscribe, bell, you know the drill. If you want to hear me say your name, get early access to most of my videos, have some fun perks on the Discord, and, you know, help Mrs. Owl and I out or buy Baby Owl the necessaries, and ensure that this channel survives, why not take a look at our Patreon? If you want to chit-chat about, well, basically anything, drop by our Discord. Take care, my friends, and cheers. This is the Owl, signing off.